At 21 years of age, Lucy Parle has already released an EP and several singles. She took out first place in the teen category of the International Songwriting Competition in 2020 and was named a standout performer in Triple J's Unearthed competition in 2020 and 2021. She has a new country music single, Best of Me, and a video to go with it. And her dog may feature in this video, and I may ask her about that. Hi, Lucy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I will get to talking about Charlie, the dog, but I'm actually going to start by going all the way back because you released
hmm
a country music EP in 2017 and then you released pop and pop rock songs. What led up to that EP? Was your interest at that time mainly country music?
Yeah, I mean, my interest has always been country music. I think when you're so young, I feel like because I've been making music my whole life, it's been really tricky for me to figure out exactly who I am as an artist. And I think it changes so much all the time. And so I like my music shows that I've changed and I've like experimented with things and tried different things and sometimes it's paid off, sometimes it hasn't. And I think that's just life. Like I think that's just with everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were in your early teens when you released that EP, and it takes a while to get to the stage of actually doing that. Even when you're young, it's like it's not just like you go, "Oh, great, I'm just going to make an EP." So, I'm
Yeah.
wondering, you said that music's been your whole life. So, at what stage did you begin that journey towards that EP?
Well, I did an EP course with Palm Studios in on the Central Coast. So I used to do, well, I still do. I do singing lessons with them, and they were running an EP course. So the whole point, it was like a whole year course, and at the end of the year, you got to record your EP. And so each week we would have different songwriters come in and tell us about how they write songs and tell us about, their way of working in the music industry. And that was a really cool experience. So I found out about that through my singing teacher. And then I was like, obviously I want to, make an EP, why wouldn't I? And so I went through the whole process and there were two other girls in the class and they were both beautiful. And yeah, it was a very fun experience, especially because I was like 14.
I have never heard of a course like that that's
Mm.
specifically tailored towards recording and releasing something at the end of it, and it makes so much sense because it's professional development with a particular goal in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I've heard about it with sort of because I work in book publishing by day, like a write a novel in a year sort of thing.
hmm
But
hmm
that's such an effective way to do it, and it obviously worked because you got your EP out.
Yeah, it was. It was so fun. And I think it was cool as well having the other girls doing it at the same time. It's like we were all kind of in the same boat.
So, given that you said that country music has always really been your thing, which artists were you listening to in your childhood and in your teen years, and has it changed actually? Are you still influenced by the same artists you were?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I used to sing a lot of Kasey Chambers when I was little. I remember one of my first ever concerts that I did was my singing school. They used to put on a little end of term concert, and I sung Pony by Kasey Chambers, and I had a little pink cowgirl hat, and I did line dancing in the guitar solo. So she was definitely one of my biggest influences. But then I guess when it comes to songwriting, I learnt that Taylor Swift wrote her own songs. And
Mhm.
that's when I started to think, hey, I really would love to do that as well. And I always used to write when I was little, like I used to write books. Um, and I think all of that creativity just flowed really easily into songwriting.
Mhm. So, writing books when you're a kid is almost invariably a work of imagination because little children have great imaginations. So,
Yeah.
when it came to writing songs, did you feel like you would go into that imaginative space, or was it more about documenting your experiences?
I think a bit of both. Like sometimes, like this still happens, but when I was a kid, it happened too. Like my brain will, I'll have a situation that's going on in my life, but then I'll kind of expand it and like make it a little bit imaginary. So, like, say, I don't know, like I like a guy, and then I will like make up all these scenarios about what could happen if we were in the same room together and then write a song about that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like imagination meets reality.
Hmm. Well, I think that's a great way to use your reality because then you get to have all these choose your own adventure things that you can put into a song.
Yeah. And then they come true sometimes and you're like, ooh.
Whoa, that is interesting. That's manifesting to talk about something that's very popular on TikTok at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were also talking about finding your identity as an artist, through country, through pop rock. It's one thing to do that; it's another to actually have the voice to be able to do that. And certainly, your voice is really suited to everything that you have released and recorded. So, is it more now that you've come back towards country music with the new single? Is it just that that's the space in which your voice feels most like you?
I think so, yeah. Like I feel like I've tried so many different genres. Even just covering different artists' songs, I've tried so many different genres. And I think for me, country music just feels like honey when I sing it. Like it feels so good. And I think that's how you know that it's where like what you're meant to be doing, because yeah, it just feels so good every time I sing it. And even if I sing covers now, like I'll sing them differently to the people who have actually written them to make them a little bit more country or a little bit more suited to my voice, and that always ends up being a little bit more country. So I think, yeah, I think it's just makes my voice feel so good and makes me feel so happy.
Right. Do you think that's possibly because it is coming from that authentic place of that's the music you connect to?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, and for the punters out there who have not heard your other sorts of releases, I do recommend they listen to them because you do sound great on them. It doesn't sound like you're being inauthentic on any of those songs that are not country, but clearly for you as an artist, it's what makes sense.
I think so. And I also think you kind of have to go through that journey of finding, like, because I started in country, went on a little experimental phase, and then I was like, oh no, this isn't where I'm meant to be, came back to country. So I feel like you kind of have to experience other things to figure out what you actually really love.
Mm-hmm. And at what age did you start performing live?
Oh, so young. I think I was probably like 8.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Was it like a competition or you just got up in front of people and sang?
I used to do competitions. I used to do singing concerts for my family, and I used to have like singing concerts at the singing school that I got lessons at.
And yeah, when you started writing songs, we've talked about the imaginative and the real in them. But then you took out some awards. So I'm wondering which song you won the International Songwriting Competition with.
I won it for, I actually don't know, to be honest. How bad is that?
I don't think
I,
it's bad. I think it indicates that you write a lot of songs. Like you just
yeah, I
writing.
think
Yeah.
it was one of the old, like the older ones. It was either I Used to Love You Back Up or Loud.
Okay.
One of those ones.
And what also indicates that you've been writing a lot of songs is that you were twice named Australian Songwriters Association Youth Songwriter of the Year. So you must be getting a bit, just blasé about winning all these awards.
No, definitely not. I love it. I love it so much. I think that I don't want to be so like I don't want to feel like my worth as a songwriter comes from winning awards. Like it comes from how it makes me feel, not, how much success I get. I think just keeping it that like that and not putting pressure on it, because otherwise it's hard to swap brains from being professional to being emotional songwriter. Like it's
Mhm.
hard to mush them together. So I try to, yeah, just keep it. I'm a songwriter because I love it.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself primarily a songwriter over any other musical function?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and a singer because I love singing. It's my
Yeah.
favorite thing.
Well, there you go. That's good to know because you are very, very good at it, I have to say, as someone who's listened to your songs. Now, you have had an association with Gina Jeffreys, who's very well known within Australian country music since the age of 14. How did that connection come about?
So I won a competition on the Central Coast called Discovered, and
Mm.
she was one of the judges. And she asked me if I wanted to be mentored by her after I won the competition. And obviously I said yes, because I'm not silly. And so I was mentored by her for a little bit. And then, well, actually, a long time, till I was like 18, probably. And she heard my music eventually, and she said to me, oh, you should come and join this songwriters group that we do every Tuesday night at the studio with Rod, which is her husband, Rod McCormack. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like such a cool experience. And so I've rocked up. I'm 14. I'm like, have no idea. I've only ever written songs in my bedroom, played them to my mum. That's about it. And I've gone into this massive recording studio, so overwhelming, with all of these adult songwriters. Like all of them were adults, like doing songwriting professionally. And I've gone in like, ooh, this is a bit scary. So it was very, very scary, but it was the best experience. I think it taught me a lot about writing and about being confident as an artist.
Mhm. How long did it take you to get used to that setup? Because I imagine at least the first time it would have
Mm.
been unusual to write with other people as well, because you've been writing by yourself.
I don't think I ever got used to it, to be
Mm.
honest. I think every time I would rock up, I'd have to like, okay, you can do it. It's gonna be okay. Because I feel like sometimes you need to just like pump yourself up and go, no, 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 we're doing this because it's a good thing, even though we're scared. So I feel like I never got used to it. But I think that's a good thing sometimes to be nervous and like, it just means you care.
It does. And there's also something known as beginner mind, which is that you always keep that attitude that there's something to learn, that you're never going to
Mhm.
learn everything that there is to know. And so
Yeah,
if you go into that scenario thinking, well, anything may happen, then lots of interesting things tend to happen.
absolutely.
So in the course of that Tuesday night group, how many songs do you think you wrote?
Oh, so many. We wrote so many. Most of them would never see the light of day, but some of them were just beautiful songs. I remember, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I was in the studio with Rod, and we were talking about the songwriting class, and I was like, "Oh, Rod, do you remember this song that so and so wrote? They put down a demo for it, and we listened to it, and I was like, oh my God, I think that's one of the best songs that I've ever heard." And
Wow.
so, yeah, it's just crazy to, yeah, it was just it's so cool to revisit and feel those feelings again.
Yeah. So you no doubt have heard over the pandemic, Sam Hawksley, based in Nashville, ran the Song Club. Felicity Urquhart and Josh Cunningham put an album out called The Song Club in the wake of that. But I've now been hearing through a few different people about Gina's Tuesday night songwriting group, and there's one that's still going on. And it seems to me that that songwriting group has had at least the same kind of impact that that Song Club did in terms of output and development of the songwriters concerned. And certainly in your case, it seems to have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That songwriters group's really cool. I used to be a teacher for it. Um, when it used to be massive, it's gotten a little bit smaller, but it's still massive. And obviously, Gina's always trying to grow it. But yeah, I used to be a teacher in that class, and it's there's a lot of talented people in that class for sure.
Well, I'd also like to take a step back and acknowledge the fact that you went in as a 14-year-old to that, not knowing what was going to happen, and then you ended up teaching it.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty good. So that I think it sort of leads us quite organically to Best of Me, which is your new single, which you wrote with Rod McCormack, who is
Mhm.
James' husband, and also with Sam Gay, who is in Nashville. So how did that song come about? Was it an idea that you brought to Rod, and then he took it to Sam, and the three of you worked on it together?
Yeah, so normally when we do a songwriting session, we all rock up on Zoom and we all write a song on Zoom. So we get on at 6 a.m. sharp in the mornings. It's a bit early, but I feel like it's a good thing too because you don't really have time to think about anything. So it's like you're very fresh in the write. But yeah, it's just because America time, it's crazy. So we're like 6 a.m., it works. Um, so I went into the write because I wanted to write a song for my first release back because I haven't released in 2 years before this release now. And so I wanted to write a song kind of almost explaining where I went. So really what happened is wasn't sure where I wanted to go with music and I released all of these songs that like they had country elements but they weren't as country as what I'm doing now. And I think I needed to go through that experience. But I just felt like I was very lost in that time. I didn't know who I wanted to be. And I was also finishing school at that time. So I feel like you automatically go through a crisis when you're about to finish school because you don't know what you're going to do with your life. And so I was just feeling really sorry for myself. And then I got into working with Rod and Sam and all of the other writers from Nashville that we work with. And I really found where I'm meant to be. And that just made me so happy. So I wanted to write a song about those ups and downs in life and still trying to give everything the best that you've got.
I also think the high school certificate is designed to make you feel like you're losing your mind.
Oh,
'Cause did you do music for your HSC?
I did.
And so do you have to, is it like a music degree where you get to focus on one thing over another?
Well, not really. You have to do a theory exam, and
Mhm.
then you have to do, I think it's 3 or 4 performances.
Right.
So it's kind of a mixed bag.
Well, you might have had an advantage over some of the other students, given that you've been working on things, you've done an EP quite a few years before that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so did you do well in your marks?
Yeah, I did do well. I was very happy. I think I think I got second in the class, I think, because I was never good at theory. Theory is not my strong point. I'd always do so well in my performances, then I get to theory and I would just have no idea what was going on. I'd listen to the music and they're like, "Okay, now what does this make you feel?" I'm like,
Mm.
"I don't know." Like I'm in the middle of a test. I'm feeling stressed. So I like I
Legitimate answer. Yeah.
I could never do theory.
And it's also interesting that, a working musician like you not loving theory and not really relating to your work. I think this happens quite a bit, that there are several musicians I've spoken to who either can't read music or they've never done music theory or it's never something that's worked for them. So it says a lot, I think, about how music itself works, and that when you're successfully making music, you do what works best for you.
Yeah, I think you pick up little tricks along the way, like especially on instruments. It's easy to like find little staple things that you can do on the piano or the guitar that just makes everything sound good. So I feel like you want to aim to do that, but that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with reading music,
Yeah.
you know. But I also think reading music is very important, but I'm just not very good at it.
But also, like, playing by ear is a particular skill as well.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
and I do tend to think they can be mutually exclusive, that if you learn to read music at a certain young age, you don't get to play by ear because they kind of, I don't know, not cancel each other out, but
Yeah.
certainly, yeah,
I
stop you.
think a good balance is good.
So, when did you record Best of Me? I'm guessing you recorded it at Rod's studio, but when did you record it?
Gosh, I think halfway through 2023, probably.
Okay. Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
we did a band tracking, so we had all of the we had the drums, the bass, and the guitar all in the studio, all playing together, and then I sung. So it was all very live vibes.
Mhm. So, have you been hanging on to it, waiting for a particular time, or it's just that life got in the way and you didn't
I
want to release?
think I think we were just waiting for like to get ready, I think, because it was the first release in so long. I wanted to make sure that everything was exactly how I wanted it to be.
Hmm. And part of getting it ready for release is that you have a music video made by Duncan Toombs, who has won golden guitars for his videos and for his music, and is very well known. So I imagine it was a pretty easy choice to pick Duncan, but was it because you'd seen a lot of his videos and liked them?
I love Duncan so much. He's just like a big teddy bear. I just want to cuddle him. Um, I had worked with Duncan before. He did my last music video, and he's done some like live acoustic versions of some covers for me. So I've worked with him a bunch of times before this video, but I think it was probably Rod who introduced me to him because he also works with Rod. But yeah, he does everyone's music videos. So I was like, it was kind of a no-brainer. I was like, obviously, I'm gonna work with Duncan. And I feel like I'm pretty not naturally photogenic. So when like I don't walk nicely. I don't really do anything very dainty. I'm very like heavy footed and I just don't look good on camera. So I think it's good when Duncan there, he can kind of tell me how to look. Like I've got videos of him while we were in the city. He's like, "Okay, Lucy, bite the apple like this." And he's like showing me how to bite the apple so that it looks good. You'd think it's a natural skill to know how to bite an apple, but that's how, yeah, that's how bad I am at being
Well,
on
except
camera.
I have to take issue with this, Lucy. When you say that you don't look good on camera, this is all a relative concept, right? Because it's all to do with what you've been looking at, what other people tell you about what looks good on camera. I think there are so many things layered into how we feel about how we look on camera.
So true.
Ultimately, you show up and deliver the song. It's your song, and yeah, your artistry really. And I think audiences want to see it from you. I'm not quibbling with Duncan giving you apple eating advice, by the way. But you mentioned being in the city, and that city was Sydney. And I was watching the video thinking, oh, he's made her go onto a tram in peak hour. Like this all sorts. So what did it take place over a couple of hours in peak hour or something like that?
It was all day. I'm not even kidding. We were just going back and forth, and the tram would get packed. It would be like people were standing, and we were trying to film the music video, and I've got my phone playing the song, and Duncan's got his camera, and we're like both on opposite ends of the carriage, and so everyone was like, "What is going on?" And people were asking questions, and people thought that we were filming them. So it was the most embarrassing day of my life, but but it was very fun.
Did you ask Duncan why he had inflicted this on you in this particular way?
Well, I actually wanted to do it. So the first line of the song is I was sitting at a bus stop. So I had this idea. I was like, what if my releases somehow incorporate the first line of the song? So the cover is me sitting at a bus stop.
Right.
And I really wanted to incorporate that in the music video as well. And it just so happened to be in the city.
On trams, yes. But
Yes.
there is also some scenes that there are some scenes that are not in the city, and they involve your dog Charlie. Now he's standing very still, very patiently. Was he well behaved throughout the shoot?
No, no, no. We had, you can't really see it in the music video, but I had a little, I don't even know what they're called. They're like bones, but they're not like meat bones. They're like the little treat bones. And I had to have one in my hand and try and hide it so that he would follow me around the field because he's dog obsessed. So if he sees another dog, he beelines and he's gone. And there's always lots of dogs at the place where we shot it. So yeah, I had to beg. I was like, please, please.
Well, it worked. Duncan got enough shots of Charlie standing quite still. So how old is he, Charlie?
He's
Not Duncan.
11.
He's 11.
Yeah.
And was he a rescue dog?
Yes, so he used to live on my grandfather's farm. My grandfather used to live in Mudgee, and we had a big property there, and we'd ride motorbikes and all this stuff. And I spent a lot of my childhood there. I first drove a car on that property when I was like 14.
As all country kids do. That's
Yeah.
late. That's late for a country kid.
And he lived on the farm, and then my grandfather passed away, and he had nowhere to go, and so my dad was like, "Oh, well, we'll take him. We've got cats, and we've had dogs before, so we were like, oh, we'll have him." And I was like to my dad, I don't want him because I know I'm going to be the one who has to look after him. I'm going to be the one who has to walk him, feed him, make sure he's clean. I'm going to be the one who has to do that. And I knew that I would. But luckily, I literally messaged all of my friends and was like, does anyone want a dog? Because we've got this dog. He's got nowhere to go. And then I met him. And on my 18th birthday, I got photos of me and him together. And he'd been living with us for like 2 weeks. And we just fell in love. It was so crazy. It was like I had known this dog my whole childhood, and I used to pat him and I used to give him attention, but it wasn't like, you know, this is my soulmate dog. It was just like, oh, this is a dog, he's cute. And now, like, we literally don't leave each other's sides. It's crazy.
Well, he's obviously very lucky to have found a new happy home. But from what I understand, you're also more generally interested in animal welfare. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've always been a very big animal lover. It's always been a part of my soul. I think it's just, to me, it just makes sense, you know, look after people, look after animals, you know. So it's always been a massive moral for me. And I think with music, it's always something that I want to keep at the forefront of why I do music. so that I can give them a voice when they don't have one.
Okay. So that indicates to me that you have some work planned, songs written around that, perhaps already recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
do.
what's the plan for releases? And also, given what you said about wanting to have the first line of your songs in videos, and perhaps it sounds like you have a like a longer term plan for what you're going to release.
Yeah, well, we're planning on doing singles for the rest of this year and early next year, and then mid next year we're going to do an album.
Okay.
So we're in the midst of finishing recording an album, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, and I'm also interested as to whether your early experience in that EP course helped you plan your way into that album and structure the songs that you wanted to put on it.
Absolutely. I think the EP course was very formative, I think, because all of the artists who we worked with, they all had something to say about, how they write and what they do when they release and, what they want to be ready before release, what they want to do post release. So I think that all has really helped. But I also think Gina and Rod, especially, have kind of showed me the ropes a lot in what is acceptable, what's not acceptable. Like, I feel like sometimes it's all a bit confusing. Like, you can do something that you feel like is a good deed, and then it's actually like something that you shouldn't be doing in the industry. So I feel like it's really good to have them on my side. So then if I have any questions or anything, I can just go and ask them.
Yeah. Well, also because there are courses you can do in music industry, I guess, in music business. There are all sorts of music related things to study, but there is no substitute for knowing how to do it. Having said that, there are plenty of things that you can only learn at the doing, which may turn out to be pitfalls. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's good to have them because they've already done it all and they know what to do and what not to do. So that makes it really easy for me.
so are you on the Central Coast still?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
And what's the live music scene like around there?
That's so good. Have you been to the Central Coast?
I know the Central Coast very well. My grandparents lived in Bateau Bay for many years before they died. So the Costa Centrale, as I like to call it, to make it sound a little bit Mediterranean. Yeah, I know it super well. Have seen it change a lot and get a lot busier as well.
So much busier. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like all the people from Sydney are like, no, we don't want to live here anymore. We're just going to come live on the
We'll just
beach.
drive the M1 every day to get to work.
Yeah. I mean, I reckon it's worth it not living in the city.
So if you're going out to see live music on the Central Coast, where's your favorite place?
Oh, where's my favorite place? I don't know. I love the Avoca Beach Theatre. Have you been there?
I haven't, but I've driven past it many times.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
lovely
beautiful.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite. I've played there a few times, and yeah, it's just a really beautiful venue, but it's also very chill, laid back, which I love.
So therefore, is it also your favorite venue to play at?
Yes.
That's like, well, people who are in the area should look up the Avoca Beach Theatre and see what's coming up. And do you have any gigs coming up?
I don't have any gigs at the moment, but I am always looking for new supports and I am like applying for festivals and trying to get all of that stuff in order. But I will always announce stuff on socials if I do have any gigs coming up.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like we have more songs to look forward to quite soon. People want to check out Charlie and you on the video. They can go and look it up. And otherwise, they can stream Best of Me and Lucy Parle. What a delight to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.